Welcome to Real Talk, Indiana's premier talk show on real estate investing, where we talk each week about investing your money right here in Central Indiana. The tips, tricks, do's, and don'ts, brought to you by CIREIA, Central Indiana's oldest and largest real estate investing association. Hello there, my name is Vicki Perry, and I'm the Executive Director of CIREIA. We have over 600 members, all active in or learning how to be active in real estate here in the Indiana market. This radio show is available on FM 95.9, AM 950, podcast on YouTube, and www.cireia.org. Join us each week as we talk about how you can make your money more active with better returns and help the community that you live in with real estate done the right way. Now, on with the show.
Hello, my name is Ron Watson, and I am the board president for CIREIA, Central Indiana Real Estate Investors Association. Welcome to CIREIA's weekly show where we talk about investing in real estate the right way. Its ups, downs, rewards, and financial gains. We are the largest and oldest nonprofit real estate investment group in the state and the only chapter of National REIA in Central Indiana. Our goal is to help you understand the options and opportunities in real estate investing. Whether you have a lot of time to invest, minimal time, lots of funds, or very little money. Last week we talked about how flipping houses is like flipping hamburgers with Brett Snodgrass, owner of Simple Wholesaling. If you missed that episode, you can listen on the CIREIA YouTube channel or tune into our website, www.cireia.org, via the calendar of events. Joining us again today is one of the most respected real estate rehabbers and investors in Indiana, Dave Short. Dave is a broker, realtor with Century 21 Sheets. He does 35 to 50 flips a year. He runs the CIREIA subgroup for rehabbing, is one of our mentors and co-owner of Perfect Lunch Mentoring. Welcome, Dave.
It's great to be here, and I'm looking forward to talking to a longtime friend here today.
Well, you mentioned your longtime friend, and that is Tom Mascari. Tom is the owner of Mascari Auctions and has been selling homes for people in Indiana for over 20 years and is here today to help you understand how buying and selling houses through an auction company might save you time, money, headaches, and we welcome Tom.
Glad to be here.
So, Tom, I know we've got a lot of ground we wanted to cover today. Maybe you could just give us a little bit of your background and how you got started in real estate auctions.
I started in 1977 and did all kind of auctions. We had an auction house in Fountain Square and went every Monday night selling anything from tomatoes to by the pound to green beans by the pound to mattresses, antiques, and so forth. And then I got into the real estate auction business and found I could make a lot more money there, and it's been very rewarding. Here again, I'm on my 41st year.
Wow, so you can make more money selling houses than
green beans.
Than green beans. Okay, well that's a tip of the day. Maybe we'll put that in the information later. But
I knew it was longer than 20 years that you were doing this, Tom, because I felt like I knew you 50 years ago. So kind of going on, starting into, we've got a lot of ground to cover today with you because this is a kind of a hot topic, and we get to do a lot of stuff with you over the years, the last few years. What reasons would people buy real estate at auction?
Well, obviously they're buying to make a profit, and those are the investors follow my auctions. We probably have 100 different investors that do follow them and are accustomed to buying at auction. A lot of people are kind of worried about buying at auction. At our auction, we present or give them clear title. So that we guarantee no liens or judgments against any of the properties we auction off. We have an insured closing, and a lot of people are worried that they're going to an auction that has liens and judgments. Not at my auctions. So we do all of our legwork up front differently than like a sheriff's sale, which Dave attends every month.
We've heard that people can buy houses sometimes at a 50% discount of retail sale price. Is that even in the ballpark?
Not at my auctions. Normally we have all the investors and we do our marketing properly, and we'll have the people that go to sheriff's sale, such as Dave. Dave can walk into the house 10 minutes for the auction and know what he's going to give for it, and I haven't seen any 50% purchases. lately.
Okay. Well, so do people come to your sales with greater expectations as what they might buy for the house?
Yes, a lot of them do.
You know what I like about you and your business is you are representing the seller, and it's your job to get them as much money as you possibly can. Correct?
Yes.
I'm just curious, Tom. What type of houses are you selling? Are they distressed properties, or what kind of people come to you and say, "Hey, I'd like to sell my house"?
Well, we deal with people that have a piece of real estate that normally needs work, and they're not willing or able to do the work and put it on the private treaty type listing as a normal realtor. So they come to me to move it quick, efficient, and we're ready to close quick. There's no inspections to be done. So I sold one in Greenwood a couple of years back on a Thursday and closed on Friday morning. So it's just a quick, efficient way to sell your real estate. You may not get top dollar that a realtor would get you, but you're going to save all the time and trouble of going to get it to that point. I.e., you're not going to go through professional inspections and so forth.
Can you give us a little bit of an idea of what type of? I've been to a lot of auctions myself of many different kinds. I never bought green beans, but there's always a possibility. But what type of requirements do you have as a licensed auctioneer? Do you have to be a real estate broker? What kind of training is required? Those kinds of things.
I am a licensed auctioneer. The state of Indiana auctioneering is the same guidelines as real estate. I'm also a licensed broker. There's realtors out there that hire me because they don't want to do the auctioneering. There are auctioneers that aren't realtors and normally will tie in with a realtor to make sure the purchase agreement and all is handled properly.
Are you looking at houses or selling houses that are in certain areas of the city, or could it be anywhere? I mean, do you do these kinds of auctions all over the state? I mean, what is your...
I've done them as far away as Wabash, Indiana, for banks, over Knightstown. So I've done a lot everywhere. I kind of specifically are on the south side of Indianapolis because that's where I'm from. Deal with a lot of realtors that have a listing that isn't going to sell because it needs all kind of work. I deal with attorneys that have estates. We do a ton of estate work, i.e. Aunt Mabel's house is now empty and needs work, and the heirs do not want to do the work to bring it back to par to sell it privately. So I'll go in and sell it at auction.
How do people know you? How does an auctioneer market? What's the lead time from the time you say, hey, I want to sell my house at auction? Typically, what kind of steps do you take to ensure you get people at your auction?
We advertise in all types of publications. Auction Zip, which, by the way, would be good for people to look into to find auctions in central Indiana. You just go to the computer, put Auction Zip in, and I'll have a calendar of all the different real estate auctions from all the different auctioneers in the area. But getting back to your question, it's usually a 2 to 3 week lead time. We do real fancy, high-end tech postcards, and we also have over 100 people in our computer system that follow our auctions, and we run it into local papers. I'm not too into going into the major papers because nobody's reading them anymore, and they're very expensive. And then, of course, we have a website you can go to and follow our auctions.
Are there dollar ranges for houses that you're selling? Could it be, the high-end houses all the way to the starter homes, or everything in between, or what are you finding?
The highest price ever done was $800,000. The lowest price was $500 for a bank. They just wanted to get it off their books. That was in a kind of rough neighborhood. We sold the property, went back before closing, and aluminum siding was gone. But we got off their books. So I'll do any range. I'm a profession of auctioneering, and you come to me with a problem, we're going to take care of it.
So Dave asked you about how people learn about the auctions. Are they able to see the properties in advance? Is that a possibility?
Yes, I will show it to them. If they're realtors, they can show it themselves. It's always on a lockbox.
So you'll work with the local realtor community trying to...
I participate with all realtors. I'll pay them part of my commission if they bring the successful bidder.
Okay. How, going back a little bit, I forgot to ask you, how did you, what training did you have to become an auctioneer?
Well, I went to Pop Davis School of Auctioneering in Morgantown, Indiana. 1975, 76. I was also blessed by being with an old-time auctioneer who's now passed away, by the name of Herman Strikas, and he had been an auctioneer since 1952. And if I had any questions, I went to Herman.
I was going to say Herman went way back with me also.
Yeah.
So
Herman's very well known.
Hey, I know we have a lot of people that are listening to our show that are relatively new to investing, or maybe they want to get started in real estate investing in some way. Is this an opportunity for them to maybe get a house and to do something with it? Do you see those types of investors as well?
Yes, I do. A lot of them come to my auctions. Of course, they're really kind of leery and pulling the trigger first couple times. They want to kind of watch. We sell homes just like we sell the green beans, real quick. We take breaks. We make sure everyone has the proper paperwork. In other words, we put out a kit that has the title work in it and the tax card and so forth. So there's no hidden facts.
Yeah. He typically starts his auctions, I can vouch for him, pretty much on time, because I was 15 minutes late, and I walked out of the car, and he said, "Sorry, son, I sold that house."
It doesn't take long. I start on time. I take a couple breaks. You're not buying a color TV, you're buying a house. I'll give you time to think about it. I also encourage you to bid one more time during the breaks. Take off again, and we're usually in and out of there in 10, 15 minutes.
Well, Tom, we have a lot more questions for you, and we want to dive back into some more detail right after our break. We've got the hot seat coming up, and we also have a tip of the week, so please join us right after the break. And welcome back to Real Talk. I am Ron Watson, president of the board of directors, and we're talking to Tom Mascari, owner of Mascari Auctions. Also joining me today is Dave Short, local rehabber and investing coach.
Tom, one of the questions that I think all the people ask, and it always interests me when I get your publications, what does it mean and how do you sell it at auction? Like I see no reserve, I see reserve. Kind of explain some of that to me.
There's three ways to conduct an auction in regards to reserves. One is absolute, regardless of what the bid is, the sellers are going to take it. We don't do those. We do what is called subject to reserve. I have put together a amount of money that we feel is proper, that the seller agrees upon, and that's with reserve. We do not tell the public that. Once I get to that point, it's going to sell. The interesting part is if the reserve's $80,000 and I get them $79,000, they probably will take it anyway. The third way is subject to owner's confirmation. We don't do that either, or my company doesn't. We don't do absolute. It's not real active around Indiana.
Are the sellers at the auction people that own the property?
I don't want them there. Sometimes they are there. I would rather they not be there. Because we have a $100,000 property and somebody's going to yell $30,000 and they're going to get upset when we open up the sale. And then we work our way up to the 80 or 90 or whatever it may be. I would rather have them in the neighborhood or be able to be reached by a phone call.
Okay, but most of the time you'll get a quick answer if people have the successful bid? Or
Yes. Most of the people that go to auction with a piece of property really want to get rid of it. But at the same time, they're worried that somebody's going to buy it for $10. That's why we put a reserve on it. It's a blind reserve, though. Only I and the owner know what it is. And then we take off and get as much as we can and turn to the owner. And normally speaking, if I'm within 95% of what the reserve is, they're going to take it.
Okay.
So talking about money, I just had a few more questions along those lines. If I'm a buyer and I'm coming to an auction, do I have to bring a deposit with me? Is there some kind of cash that you need to verify or funds you need to verify? And how do I do that? And what kind of registrations required?
I don't really get too concerned about registration. You do not have any money to get or put up any money to get a bid number. If you're the high bidder, in my case, we want a 10% deposit that day. I will take your personal check, just like a realtor takes a personal check. A lot of the auctioneers say no, they have to have a cashier's check that day for a certain amount of money. I've never done it that way. I've never gotten a bad check either. So it's the same if you go to buy a piece of property through a realtor, you're going to put up a deposit and usually a company check or personal check. You don't need cashier's funds. But that's how I do it. Other realtors or auctioneers do it a different way.
I mean, I love that about your company, that I don't have to run to a bank first before I know I can come to your auction and try to be a successful bidder on it. Because like you said, I may see the property 10 minutes before. And, having said that, I'm a little bit different than most. Can these people get in these houses, and what's their lead time, and how do they do that?
Once we get it advertised and we have 2 to 3 week lead time, I will show them the property, or my assistant will show them the property, or they can go through a realtor. I'm also a realtor, so these properties are in the MLS. So if they want to use their realtor they've used for years, that's fine, and I'll pay them. So there's all kinds of getting into the property. It's not just for certain people to get into.
So I know Dave has talked about going to sheriff sales, tax sales, those kinds of things. How is this type of auction different than those types of sales?
Well, sheriff sales, which Dave knows a lot more than I, but the sheriff sales, you're buying with a chance of there being problems with the title. Your guys like Dave are seasoned. They know how to go up to the clerk's office and look at the judgment. I had a experience at a sheriff's sale that we went and bought it for $2,000. It was the first one we ever bought, and we found out later it was a second mortgage, and it was a first mortgage like $110. The property was worth $80.
I think I might have told you that after you bought it.
They know their way around. They get to the city county building. They know where to go look at the judgment to make sure it's a first, not a second. You can buy property like Dave has that has an IRS lien on it. There's all kind of things. You better know what you're doing to go into sheriff's sale.
Okay, how many properties are you doing a year from an auction standpoint?
Anywhere from a low of 35 to a high of 60.
Is it always one at a time? Is it always at the house?
I have done 17 in one day. That's called a caravan sale. We went from house to house. I had a guy unlocking the next one, a guy staying behind writing a purchase agreement on that one, and we'd meet at the next one. 4 years ago, I did 8 in one day in Greenwood, and here again went from house to house. I've done them in, we call them a ballroom sale, and I've done as many as 25 or 30 at that time, where you go and take videos and so forth. I found it's easier to do them. I conduct a lot of sales in Fountain Square, which is a real hot area, and we've been using the Fountain Square Brewery, real high-end place, and the guy unlocks it early for me, and I buy one beer for everybody, no more, and we have a good time there, too.
I know I've been to a lot of auctions. I know Dave has, but some people that when I go to auctions, I can tell some are intimidated by what's going on there. Is there a way for people that may have an interest in coming to an auction to contact you in advance to say, hey, I haven't been before. Can you kind of walk me through it so I have a comfort level so that when the bidding starts, I know what I'm doing and what I shouldn't be doing?
We'll work with them any way we possibly. That's why I buy one beer, to loosen them up. But we'll work with them. But you do find people are very timid to bid at auction. That's why I kind of rely on guys such as Dave, the investors that go to the sheriff's sale and start bidding. They don't even check these houses out. They walk through them, but they don't know if the furnace is working and so forth. So we try to hold their hand. An auctioneer that sells cars, if you've been to a car auction, is much quicker than an auctioneer that sells real estate. We slow down so they can understand us, and so forth. But the new people, it's interesting. The new people are really, really worried about buying at auction. They're worried about everything. That's why I put everything together in the beginning, put a package together that has title work showing no liens or judgments, showing the tax card just so they know what the taxes are. And we try to create a safe island.
If you mentioned realtors before, but if somebody wanted to come to an auction or was interested in bidding on a property, is it possible for them to have someone sort of in their place to make that bid, or potentially a realtor to make a bid on his behalf? Or
yes,
do people,
at my
people
auctions,
do that?
yes.
Okay. And so after the auction's over, you talked a little bit about the title and that what people are delivered in terms of the property, but what happens after the sale? Do you give them the keys? I mean, do you require a certain amount of time for like a waiting period there? How does that actually work?
No, right then and there, we'll do the contract and try to get the seller to sign off. We'll find him somewhere. And then I get a 10% buyer's premium. We charge a buyer's premium at my auctions. And now that 10%, I pay all advertising. I pay the other realtors if they bring a client and so forth. Here again, we just try to make everybody feel real good. Then we have an insured closing. We have some clients that say, I want to buy it right now, like the one we sold on Thursday and closed on Friday morning. I'm ready to close at auction. I do everything backwards than what a realtor does in a private treaty. So we're ready to go when they want to get it done. I've had clients that want to take the full 30 days, but we don't go over 30 days. We're going to close this thing quick.
Tom, on just backtracking a little bit, and we talked about share sales and tax sales and things. One of the big sites that we look at for houses today is an auction.com. How are you different from them? I know they run a pretty big business, and it's a good site, but it's maybe not as hands-on.
It's obviously ran from another state. They have realtors that put their houses and commercial properties in auction.com. I'm not so sure they get a lot of them sold. We're much more hands-on, as you can attest. I mean, we're right there. We want the people there. We're going to tell some jokes and get them all loosened up. Auction.com is just an auction generated by computers, if you will. I'm not so sure they've sold a lot of real estate.
Well, we've bought a few from them over the years, and they're a good firm, really good firm to work with, and easy to get along. And they don't, they maybe take longer to do it, where you're there to sell it immediately, where they're now working for a seller, and it could drag out a lot longer before it gets to the auction price. One of the things that you might comment on a little bit is that, the beauty with an auction, it's like a foreclosure auction or a tax auction. You've got people there, and it may be 5 people there, it may be 25 people there. You'll be able to get what fair market value is for that specific property today. Now, kind of going, that's why a seller likes this. They've got choices.
Well, a seller comes to me and they want to sell the property. Obviously, it's an estate, or they just don't have the money to fix it up. And I'm much more hands-on, I believe, than the companies that are advertising. Hubu's another big one, and they do sell properties. I've bought properties off of Hubu's. They're much more difficult to deal with. Corporate.
Yeah.
And you get all these different, and then you got to get the checks in and so forth and so on. I'm right there. I'm a personality business. I'm right there to hold your hand, get you through the auction, get the contract put together, and get it to a closing immediately. I'm much more hands-on than a computer can be.
Thank you, Tom. We're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, the hot seat's coming up very soon, and we've got the tip of the week still ahead. And welcome back to Real Talk. I am Ron Watson, president of the board of directors, and today we're talking to Tom Mascari, owner of Mascari Auctions. Also joining me is Dave Short, local rehabber and investing coach. I know Dave had a couple more questions about after the sale.
Yeah, after you sell the property, Tom, I want you to expand a little bit on the clear title and taking the ease away from the people that's going to buy the house, and tell us a little bit. I'm going to ask 2 or 3 questions at a time. How's the property deeded? What other costs are we charged with, or is the buyer charged with?
Okay, well, number one, when I say clear title, I mean you're getting a title insurance policy in the amount of purchase, or you can buy more title insurance that guarantees there's no liens and judgments. If there are, the title company, it's their problem. And we also do everything with an insured closing. If you don't know what insured closing is, we all go to the title company and we pay them a fee to do all the paperwork. And they also ensure that there's no issues that's going to come back, i.e. if a mortgage appears a year later when you're selling it, it's their issue. And that's what title insurance is all about. You can get any type of deed as long as you're getting title insurance. You can get a warranty deed, a probate deed. You can get a quit claim deed, but I don't use those. We usually get a warranty or a probate or a corporate. But the key here is you're guaranteed ownership of the property that's not subject to any liens or judgments. And here again, there's you pay 1/2 of the closing fee. That's the only fee a buyer pays at my auctions. If the closing fee charged by the title company is $300, we charge you $150, and we charge the seller $150.
Talk a little bit about, I know you sell with a buyer's premium versus maybe a real estate commission or something. I think that's big for the buyers or for the audience to understand on how a buyer's premium works.
I charge a 10% buyer's premium in most cases. And if you bid $100,000, the purchase price becomes $110,000. We add back the 10%. We have found it's cleaner for the sellers. I say the high verbal bid is yours, and then I take the 10% buyer's premium, and I pay all the marketing out of that. If there's another realtor involved, I pay them out of that.
Which is a great idea because we as investors know exactly what we're going to pay for the house, and add a buyer's premium for your services on top of that, which we do it in the online auctions. I would say an extremely high percent of them have a buyer's premium also that's added on to the sale of the property. Is that correct?
Correct. And the buyer's premium just came about in the last 20 years. It used to be, it was unheard of to charge a buyer's premium. Sotheby's, Christie's in New York started it. They sometimes will charge a 20% buyer's premium. And that's all over the map and so forth. But most of the auctioneers in central Indiana have gone to a buyer's premium.
In your auctions, Tom, I know you talked about some of the other online type of auctions that are out there. Do you offer anything like that, or is there a way for other people to bid without being present, for example?
You can bid online. We provide that service on our auctions. I have found, though, and of course the online auctions have kind of proved me wrong, but I have found that someone buying a $120,000 house isn't going to bid from Texas, but apparently they are. I found that you're going to get online bidding on the low-end stuff and the 10, 15, 20,000. But here again, the online auction, the Hooboos, they do a good job. Auction.com does a good job. They're proving me wrong, I guess. But I'd rather be there right sitting in the living room or the kitchen or out front and have the product right there and have all my bidders right there. Normally, my job is to get as much money as I possibly can.
So when somebody is, we've talked a little bit about, or a lot about selling, what about, buying, what about selling? I mean, if I had a home and I was thinking about selling it, and there's lots of different ways I can do that, what do you tell people, or what types of people might be interested in coming to you and say, hey, sell my house for me?
The one thing we do is we provide a service that's going to create competition for your house. Now, in a hot market we are today, that's interesting. In Florida, they'll sell a whole platted subdivision at auction before they put the streets in a hot market. And now we're in a hot market here. I think I can get top dollar here because I can create competition. Now, when the market's soft, we're going to the sellers because they need another way of getting rid of the property. But in today's market, I'll get you the top dollar. You've got a house that might need some repair. You don't want to put the money into it, or you don't have the money to put into it. I can turn your real estate to cash pretty quick. Whereas Dave will tell you sell them privately. You got an inspection. Now you got to reply to the inspection. So now you're renegotiating the deal 10 times before you get to the closing table. Mine's simple. We're going to have an auction. You're going to raise your hand. I'm going to get a down payment. We're going to go to the closing table real quick, as is where it is.
So if somebody said to you, yeah, I'd like to sell my house, is there something you need to do to get that house ready? Is it just, hey, we'll take it as it is? What kind of process do they need to go through?
The key is we're going to sell it as is, where is. Now, if you got a broken window, I might require you to fix the broken window. You got a house that needs a roof. Let the people decide what it's going to cost to put that roof on. And that's where the interesting part about an auction. You might have, and I'll get them, people never been to an auction thinking, well, it's going to cost $10,000 to put the roof on, whereas a guy that's an investor is going to show up and say, I can get the roof put on for $3,000. So now you got a $7,000 play there. Who's right and who's wrong? And that's why we go auction. We get a lot of the investors, such as Dave. These guys will walk through our house and start bidding. They know the neighborhoods. They know everything that's going on, so I don't have to worry about the inspections, the response to the inspections, and the response to the response. I don't know if you sell any houses privately. And I'm also a realtor, but I'm too old to go through the motions of selling one privately.
Right. And so if I know that, like I mentioned, I've been to many auctions, and I can imagine a house that somebody wanted to sell quickly. They wanted to get rid of it for whatever reason. Maybe there's a bunch of stuff in the house too. And what happens to all the stuff? Do I have to take it out? Is it mine? Whatever's in the house I get to keep, or how's that work?
Well, no, we unless you want to keep it, unless you say, hey, I want everything in the house. But no, we if we've got a lot of valuable items, we'll do a private, personal sale there. And I call in another auction group. I'm 70 years old. I don't want to mess with it. I've got young auctioneers that have all the equipment, so they come pull their equipment in and have a sale right then and there. If it's just pure junk, you got another issue. I sold out recently an electronics firm that dealt in transistors. It's from 1958, and we sold it, but it was an interesting sale.
Well, it's pretty amazing, the auction process, because I'll get a notice of one of your auctions and I'll go there and I'm thinking, man, I'd love to have this, but I know people are going to outbid me for the property. And yet they're bringing sometimes more than you might get in a realtor sale or other types of sales, especially if it's a nice house, because people will come out for, what I call perceived value, which is, a positive for your business.
That's why we create competition. And we're in a hot market right now. And as you folks know, there's tons or hundreds of people wanting to become investors. So we've got a lot of people wanting to buy real estate right now, and give me 10 of them standing in a room, and I'll get top dollar for your property.
Yeah, I know this is kind of an exciting time to be in real estate investing, and particularly in central Indiana, because there's so many options and avenues for people to get started and involved, and this is a really interesting, exciting way to do that. So we have a segment of the show coming up, which we call the hot seat, so I hope you're ready. And you've got some water there, so you might want to break that out. And we're going to get to that right after this break. And welcome back to Real Talk. I am Ron Watson, president of the board of directors. And we've been talking with Tom Mascari, owner of Mascari Auctions, and also Dave Short, a local rehabber and investing coach. And now, Tom, I know you weren't prepared for this, but it's time for the hot seat.
The hot seat, it started.
How hot is that seat?
That seat's a little bit hotter.
This seat is ultra warm. Oh, we got it.
We're going to put you in on the hot seat, as they say.
Some people have cracked under this segment, but I think, hopefully you'll make it through. We just have a few questions for you regarding some of the things that happen at auctions and so forth. One thing I was wondering about is what can go wrong?
Well, a lot of things could go wrong, but that's where your auctioneers got to kind of control the crowd. I had a sale a year or so ago. Gentleman shows up with his father. He's 40s. Well-known family, and he bids up to $200,000 in 20 seconds. And I said, ready to say sold, and Dad runs over and says, he's a stroke victim, he can't bid. So that they went wrong. We put it right back on the market, or put it right back up on the block, and it ended up selling to another party for $195. Had another one that went wrong, was a horse farm. A gentleman, 75 to 80, not much older than me. We charge 10% buyer's premium, so he runs it up to $300,000. I said, okay, and I always do this. You're $300,000 plus $30,000 buyer's premium, so you're $330,000. He says, well, I thought the buyer's premium was only $3,000. He got multiplication wrong, so we immediately went and did it again. Right, we don't mess around, start talking to attorneys. We just redo it.
Yeah.
And it brought $300,000. So those are the kind of things that could go wrong. You can be very specific, and I am. At the end of the day, this is somebody like Dave Short that's been around. He knows what the 10% is. I'll say you're the high bidder at $100,000 plus 10%. That's $110,000. Do you agree or you understand? So we're very detailed in that manner.
Well, that makes sense. So I guess maybe a calculator might be a good idea at some point.
Yeah.
If you can't do the 10% in your head. What about other mistakes that people make when they come to the auction? Maybe not being prepared or not having all the information they need. Do you ever see anything like that?
Well, I would hope they're prepared. I've never really worried about it, and I've seen people get crazy and pay too much for a piece of real estate. And of course, being the auctioneer, I'm working for the seller. I can't say, "Hey, you paid too much," so we just take it from there. But normally speaking, it runs pretty smooth. We've been doing these for years. We go over all the terms and conditions to make sure there's no confusion. And in the end, if there is confusion, I start over right then and there. We're not going to argue and go get to the Supreme Court justices to decide what's right or wrong. We're just going to resell it.
Contingencies, Tom. Can I come to your auctions and buy subject to me getting an FHA loan?
Nope. It's truly a cash transaction. And I say no because we're there to move it on. The people come to me and say, we want to sell this property. We want it to be owned by somebody else in a certain amount of time. And we're not going to go FHA.
What about if I show you a bank letter of credit? I
still have problems with it. Now, that's at the auction. Now, if you would have called me 10 days prior and said, here's my letter, talk to my mortgage broker, and I know of them, I know they're reputable, we might work a deal 10 days prior, a week prior, but not at the auction.
You just want to know they can buy for cash when you sell the auction.
Right. So we don't back up or we don't accept any letters of credit that day.
Okay, that makes sense. Like I said, Tom and I go way, way back. We've owned bars together. I've bought toilets from him. I've bought cars from him. I've bought furniture from him. I bought stuff I didn't know I bought. Hey, Dave, you bought this. And I said, well, let's talk about it. But, any funny stories or any things that can come to mind to you as far as the auction business and what you've run across over the years?
Over the years, we've ran into all kinds of situations. Out here again, I do some private work commercial, just sold a building in Fountain Square for a lot of money, and they took the sign down, a Nagley sign or whatever, and behind the sign is a painted sign like Mail Pouch Tobacco or the Wonder Bread. It says Square Auction, we buy estates. That was my company in 1977. Wow. I bought a building in 77, 78 for $11,000 on Virginia Avenue at Woodlawn. Sold it to a guy for $14,000. He sold it for $32,000. That guy sold it for $80,000. I just sold the whole block for $1.2 million. And that's where I started. We would sell green beans by the pound. And the guy'd bring in the green beans, and we'd $1, $25, $50, $75, $2, to back them up, boys. And then we just pass them out. And every Monday night, that's where I got my training. Every Monday night, I got on the block. And Dave told me he used to work for another old-time auction company called Eastside Auction. And he used to be the ringman and get all the money and so forth and so on. But the old time, now, here again, these are all good friends of mine. Christie's do a heck of a good job, and Phil does a good job on real estate. He'd be a good guy to contact to get on his mailing list. The Finleys down here in Franklin do a great job. Lawson out in Danville does a great job. Heim out in Beech Grove. You might just get into auctioneers and call them all and get on their list for real estate auctions. Because they're going to snag an estate once in a while you just might make some money on. That's the interesting part about auction, and that's why everybody shows up. They're all hoping to steal it. And then you create competition. If I got 10 people that get it in their car on a Saturday morning and decide they're going to buy that house today, only one can. And then that's why we usually work the crowd and get more money than they possibly. Dave doesn't get a whole lot bought at my auctions. I don't think. Have you lately?
Not lately.
And so forth. So it's been a long 41 years.
Tom, you mentioned some other people. Can you tell people how they can reach you if they want to find you?
To t.mascari@aol.com, and I'll get you on my mailing list. But here again, I don't want to slight the other auctioneers. They're all doing a good job.
Well, and usually when we do at this time of the show, you survived the hot seat pretty well. I think that was pretty well done. Not just a little bit of sweat on the brow there. that you did all right. But we always ask for a tip of the week. Is there some information you can share with the listeners that might be something you consider a tip?
I would say if you've got cash funds, fine. If you need to get a loan, go get a loan prior to going to the auction property, but a second mortgage or a line of credit and so forth, sure you're ready to react at auction.
Dave, did you have any other questions for Tom?
Just talk about buyers again on paralysis. I see it all the time. I know you see it at an auction company where you're trying to coax them into doing something that they think they don't want to do, and you're making them do something.
Well, that's what we're doing. I use different lines like, bid one more time, I'll never ask you again.
That's a lie, by the way. He does that all the time.
No, they bid at $100,000, and then the other guy bids $110,000, so I go back and say, I'll never ask you again at $120,000.
Oh, I see. So there's a distinction there.
And we worked the crowd. We worked the crowd, and the guy that taught me the business was fabulous at working the crowd. And we try to get top dollar for the property, and that's why we get repeat clients coming back at us.
Well, Tom, thank you so much for joining us today. I know there's probably a lot more we could talk to you about, and I'm sure you've got some great stories through the years that
I do have one with Dave where we decided to buy a bar. He wanted me to look at the equipment. We ended up buying the bar, and what did we own it, 3 years?
It seemed like 20,
it was an interesting situation because none of us went to run the bar. We just owned the bar. So, okay, well, thanks for having me.
Absolutely, Tom. And this week at CIREIA, we have a special learning event on Tuesday, March 6th. It's from 6 to 8 at the Broadmoor Country Club, and we'll be learning how to use the local public records newspaper, court and commercial record to find motivated sellers. We also have a special event at the end of the month on Tuesday, March 27th. It's sponsored by Atlanta Mortgage and Longhorn Investments Commercial Lending. We'll have 2 sessions to learn about what you need to know when borrowing money for your investments. To find out more about our group and events at CIREIA, visit cireia.org. That's CIREIA.org. And I wanted to thank Dave again for joining us, and thank you, Tom, and thank you for listening today.